Every human runs on blood. It's the fuel of your body, and it looks like it's the same for everyone. Turns out that's wrong. If you're O positive, you're carrying one of the strongest blood types there is. And brand new research just found an even bigger reason why. There's a real advantage running through your blood your whole life, and researchers just discovered it's showing up again in an unexpected place tied to COVID, years after the infection was gone. Picture it. Hospital hallways lined with beds, staff working shift after shift, and one stubborn detail nobody could explain. Back in 2020, doctors noticed something strange. Hospitals were filling with COVID patients, but infection rates didn't look identical across blood types, and nobody had a good explanation for why. That single observation launched one of the largest genetic studies of the entire pandemic, centered on the ABO gene, the same gene that decides whether you're type A, B, AB, or O. The genetics company 23andMe analyzed data from over 1 million participants, an almost unimaginable dataset by genetic standards, led by researcher Janie Shelton and her team. The results were first released as a preprint, meaning the findings were shared publicly before going through full peer review. Peer review is the formal process where other scientists independently check a study's methods before it's considered fully validated. Even before that review, the pattern held up after adjusting for age, sex, and weight. People with blood group O, whether O positive or O negative, appeared measurably less likely to test positive for the virus at all. That was an observational study built largely on self-reported surveys, meaning it could spot a statistical pattern without actually proving that blood type caused it. Then the virus kept changing. Alpha, then Delta, then Omicron. In 2024, physician Nicholas Mielke and colleagues at Corewell Health examined more than 9,000 COVID patients across all 3 waves. After adjusting for age, race, and vaccination status, blood type was no longer an independent predictor of ICU admission, mechanical ventilation, or death. In other words, once those other factors were accounted for, blood type on its own didn't meaningfully change the odds. Scientists chasing an actual mechanism found something concrete to test, not just a correlation sitting in a spreadsheet. The ABO gene shapes sugar molecules on the surface of your cells, and one idea is that those same structures affect how a virus interacts with cells in the first place. Researchers had seen this pattern before, decades earlier, with a completely different virus. In 2005, during the original SARS outbreak, physician Yan Cheng and colleagues found blood group O hospital staff in Hong Kong were measurably less likely to get infected than non-O colleagues, despite similar daily exposure. A 2008 follow-up, led by researcher Jacques Lepondu, found a possible reason. People with blood group O naturally carry both anti-A and anti-B antibodies, and those antibodies could interfere with the virus attaching to cells, at least in laboratory experiments. It was a small, early clue, tested in test tubes rather than hospitals, but it gave researchers something they hadn't had before, an actual reason to keep looking, instead of just a number on a chart nobody could explain. Here's where the real upgrade actually shows up, and it has nothing to do with dodging an infection. Picture 2 blood vessels side by side, both no wider than a strand of hair. In one, blood slides through smooth and easy. In the other, cells catch and clump, slowing everything down. Long before COVID existed, hematologists already knew that blood group O carries naturally lower levels of 2 clotting proteins, von Willebrand factor and factor VIII, tied to a genuinely reduced risk of dangerous blood clots. That single trait keeps resurfacing across completely different diseases in completely different countries, decades apart from each other. A 200,000 patient study in China found non-O blood types carried roughly 40% higher odds of venous thromboembolism, dangerous clots in the legs or lungs. Broader multi-country meta-analyses have pushed that gap even higher, in some cases close to double the risk. That's not a one-off number from a single hospital. It's the same pattern turning up again on a different continent, in a completely different population. A 50,000-person study following adults in Iran for 7 years found non-O blood types carried 9% higher all-cause mortality and 15% higher cardiovascular mortality specifically. The same trait even shows up in brain health, though the picture there is a little less direct. A University of Vermont team led by Mary Cushman, using data from the 30,000-person REGARD stroke study, found type AB carried 82% higher odds of cognitive impairment than type O, which had the lowest risk of any blood type. Factor VIII levels only explained about a fifth of that gap, so it's likely mostly, but not entirely, downstream of the same vascular and clotting story showing up again in a different organ. This is the number that changes everything, the one the rest of this video has been quietly building toward. People with non-O blood types were twice as likely to suffer a heart attack or stroke after COVID-19 than people with type O. That elevated risk didn't fade with time either, not after 6 months, not after a year. It held for nearly 3 full years after the original infection, for as long as the researchers kept following patients. 3 years is a long time for a virus most people caught once and then stopped thinking about entirely. That finding comes from a 2024 study led by James Hilser, with senior authors Stanley Hazen and Houman Alaei, published in the journal Arteriosclerosis, Thrombosis, and Vascular Biology. Researchers at Cleveland Clinic and the University of Southern California pulled the data from the UK Biobank, a massive long-term health database, comparing more than 10,000 people with a documented COVID history against over 200,000 people without one. That's the actual upgrade, and it's worth being clear about what it isn't, since it's easy to get carried away. Not immunity, not a shield against catching the virus in the first place. A measurably calmer clotting system that shows up again and again across malaria centuries ago, venous clots today, general mortality, and now specifically post-COVID heart risk, the same biological trait quietly doing the same job in study after study, in country after country, decade after decade. The full picture is still more complicated than any single headline, and it's worth walking through honestly rather than skipping past it. Start with antibodies, a study of convalescent plasma donors, people who'd already recovered from COVID and donated blood specifically so researchers could study their antibodies, found blood type made no real difference to antibody levels after natural infection at all. Vaccines told a different story though. Researchers at the Pasteur Institute of Iran, led by Mona Sadat Larijani, found blood type did matter for some vaccines, just not all of them equally. Type O held antibody levels longer after the Sinopharm vaccine specifically, while Type A responded more strongly to AstraZeneca instead. Gastric cancer tells its own two-sided story. The Shanghai cohort study followed over 18,000 men for 25 years and found Type A carried a 26% higher gastric cancer risk than types B or O, a pattern later confirmed independently in a much larger Taiwanese study of more than 300,000 people. A couple of other leads round out the picture: pregnancy risk, extreme longevity. But the evidence there is too mixed to call either one a real finding yet. So has O positive earned a real upgrade? Yes. Not because it kept anyone from catching COVID. It's because that same calm, steady blood you were born with just proved one more time, in one more study, that it's been protecting you longer and in more places than anyone realized. And it still is.